I think when it comes to innovating, 1 out of 5 might be Hall of Fame.
Of what it takes to go from $20 million to 50 and then 50 to 100.
If you're at 20 million and you want to get to 50 and you're not delegating, you're never going to get there. The nice thing about starting a company right out of college is
All right, guys, welcome back to Built in America. We are back with a famous individual. His name is John Katzman. He's a founder of Princeton Review, currently the CEO of Noodle. John, thanks for being on the pod.
no, thanks for having me, Sam.
John, I always like to start with this question because I think it reflects back to someone like yourself who's built something that has changed education today. And if you're watching the movie of your life, what's the scene that you go back and relive one more time while building Princeton Review?
There was a moment where we had hit a pretty good enrollment number. The idea was just to do that for 3 years and use the proceeds to start a software company. But it was growing really quickly. And there was one spring where we had filled our capacity. We hit, 300 or 400 kids. It was right at the beginning, like a year in. And I took the whole office, 3 guys, down to Florida to just have a good long weekend and blow off some steam. And they were all like high school kids or recent high school grads. And we had a great time and we came back up and it was just everything working. Like everybody wanted what we had and the kids were having a great time and the teachers were great. You just sort of felt like, well, now it'll be easy. It has not been easy, but it was a brief moment where the skies were cloudless.
And I'm sure during that time, like you just saw everything in front of your eyes. You're like, wow, this is actually working. But I want to reverse engineer a little bit first. You started this in Princeton as a college kid, and you found a better widget to go prep for the SAT. Is that correct?
Yeah, you know what it was? I tutored when I was in college and liked it, and it wasn't really a better widget. Everybody talked about the SAT back then, but no one looked at the test. And the people who wrote the test considered it to be kind of IQ, like a test of your aptitude. And the people tutoring for it, were just vaguely, oily is the wrong word, but there was something just crappy about the whole thing. And the kids doing it were like C students who wanted to look like B students. Really, nobody would want to be known as prepping for the SAT because it was an IQ test that you couldn't prep for. And somebody actually looking at the test and saying, this is exactly what's on it. This is what they're measuring. This is what wrong answers look like. This is how you put it together. It is not testing IQ, but it's also not testing high school math or reading. Let's just teach the stuff that's actually on the test. And let's have fun with it. Let's do this for really good students who just, maybe they're not great at standardized tests, which would make sense because it has nothing to do with what you learn in high school or what you're going to learn in college. And so I don't think it was a better widget. It was stuff like we used software back in the day, like this is, early 1980s, that when you took a test that day, I wrote a whole bunch of software and we typed in all your answers. We got a report back for you, a report back for your teachers. This is what you're doing well and badly. And, at a pretty good level of sophistication so that the next day when you came into class, we actually had something to tell you. And so nothing about it was breathtaking. It was just nobody had done it.
You obviously found product market fit rather quickly. Take me back to you sitting in the dorm and actually building this out. This company, obviously, you put some questions together that were, seamless to what the exam would look like. How did you, and maybe whoever helped you build this company as well, come together and say, I'm going to put this book and then go productize this as well and build a business out of it?
My dad had run a company. My grandfather invented the electric vaporizer, like when you're sick and this little thing with steam. My dad took the company and ran it forever as a small, lovely company that put us all through college and it gave him a great life. My brother turned it into a $500 million global manufacturing company. But growing up, he always just talked about like, starting a business is a lot of fun and running a business is a lot of fun. And what I did when I started is basically sent out a letter to all the high school counselors in New York and said, I'm starting this SAT prep and we're going to do a really good job for students. And I'd love you to try out like one or two kids. And that was really it. I got 15 or 16 students and then did a good job with them. The guy who speaks about this really compellingly is, it's the guy who created Sam Adams beer. And he just talks about, he's talking to his dad. Oh, today I designed this computer system, or like, this is what we're going to buy for this or whatever, or these. And his dad said, have you sold anything today? Did you sell any beer? And he's like, well, no, he says, why don't just every day you go sell some beer? Like the day's not over until a bar says, I'll pick up Sam Adams beer. And it's been inspirational to me. Like everything is about getting in front of customers, talking to them and selling them. And that gives you all the stuff you need to know in order to evolve your product and, and build something interesting. And so from the beginning, it really was just about getting students, teaching them, and in doing so, figuring out what's the best way to teach them, what's the best way to get them.
John, you obviously a doer, right? You're mailing letters out back in, the early days, where today you do a lot of emails, cold calling. You have a lot better form of digitizing this to reach mass scale. Back when you didn't have that. I think today a lot of people pontificate on, what they should do next sometimes. And there's so many more options, right? I think back when you were doing it, there was probably less options, meaning you just had to go take action in one direction.
There were fewer, but even today, like people wonder, like all the time I'm talking to entrepreneurs and they're wondering like, should I call it this or, is this the selling point or is that the selling point? And it's like, well, go on SurveyMonkey and you can get a panel for like $500. We can have this answered in the next 3 hours. Like let's craft something, get it out there and get an answer. The tools are really powerful, but in the end, they're all just about talking to customers.
Do you feel that you have to go take a massive amount of risk to go build this company? Obviously starting in your early 20s. What did you have to go risk to do this?
Nothing. Like the nice thing about starting a company right out of college is there's no risk. Like you're used to eating crappy food and living in a, room this big with somebody else. So, and I had advantages beyond that. Like my parents were good with me living with them for a year. So I had no rent and food. Like, so what was my risk? Like I worked on Wall Street for about 6 weeks. Push comes to shove. Like I could have gone back and gotten a job. Like my life wouldn't have been over.
Yeah, I think you should go take the biggest risk of your entire life in your early 20s. And I always advise people to go do that today. Young entrepreneurs who are listening to this podcast, sometimes they're hesitant knowing that there's a good job in front of them, but I would avoid that job and try to go build something on your own today, because the time and effort that you have available to you in your early 20s is once in a lifetime, right?
My son was thoughtful. He's working for a startup now and but has had ideas for startups that were actually pretty good. And I'm like, why don't you just go start it? And he's like, I don't need to make every mistake on my own dime. Like working for a startup, I'm going to see things and I'm going to be part of a community and help grow something. And there'll be plenty of time to do my own. I don't think you have to start it in your early 20s, but that's certainly what I recommended to him. So I'm with you. But B, if not then soon after. Like the more you have kids and you have mortgages and you have a lifestyle that, requires you to spend money, the more risk you're taking.
John, you took a level of risk at some point in your life, I'm sure, to build what you built today. You know how to go from 0 to 1. You went and, mailed some letters out to get Princeton review going. And then you scaled this business to hundreds of millions of dollars. And now it's probably over $1 billion valuation. You've done that a couple times now. How do you go scale companies today? What do you think people are missing from doing so?
This is my third company that's gotten to 100, but I've never taken a company from 100 to 500. And
different growing.
It could just be that I'm a very good starting pitcher and that at some point you got to give the ball over to the next guy. But from 0 to let's say 5 million, I think is is a really interesting moment. And more than anything, it's about blowing things up every day and just iterating constantly. I majored in architecture, and one of the nice things about architecture is, you make a design for some building and then somebody comes over, and all the time there's a steady stream of people behind your desk, looking over your shoulder and saying, well, why'd you do that? And that's interesting, but like, I hate this or I love this. And you put a new, back in the day before you did it on a screen, you just put a new piece of trace on top of the last one, and you keep the stuff you like and you fool with the stuff you don't like. And that the iteration, the constantly just beating up on things, that when you're growing at a pretty good clip, whatever works in January will not work by December. And so you're just comfortable with that, I think, is really, really important. People think that the idea is going to come out of their head perfect, and that's it. Now I just got to run that. And it's like, it's never that. It's always a million little wiggles.
Do you sometimes feel that you have to make mistakes along the way so you know what good looks like and what bad looks like?
That's a lovely way to say it. I would love that to be true. But I think it doesn't matter if it's a good or bad thing. It's a thing. Like you are going to make mistakes, and the more aggressive you are about growing something, the more mistakes you're going to make. I think about baseball. You get to hit 1 out of every 3 at bats, you're a Hall of Famer. I think when it comes to innovating, 1 out of 5 might be Hall of Fame. Like 4 out of 5 things you try won't work. And if your batting average is a lot higher than that, it's probably that you're not being aggressive enough. You're not trying things. You're not being creative.
John, you talked about 0 to 5 is about, the architecture of doing. Then I would say, 20 to 50 is a different architecture, and then 50 to 100 is a whole nother different architecture. Can you frame us what it takes to go from $20 million to 50 and then 50 to 100?
I'll tell you one thing that I've been consistently bad at, which is you need a great CFO. You need timely, accurate financial data and projections forward that are meaningful. You need to have real conversations about where your numbers are coming out, where your cash is coming out. And, every so often you get this great stretch in the economy where money's free, where people are just throwing money at you. But especially right now, unless you're an AI company and that's about to end, that's real money. That's like, you get it and you want to keep it and spend it really, really thoughtfully. And I'm much better at the top line than I've been at, rigorously keeping costs under control. I think going from 20 to 50 is about that first level of systematizing where you think of yourself, you don't think of yourself this way, you are this way. You're like the sun god. Like your org chart is you in the middle and then lines to everybody. And everybody's compensation is a deal, like is something you cut with them. And going from 20 to 50 is about a rational organization. What are we trying to do here? And what's the structure of a company that's going to get it done? And who are the right people for those roles? And how do I let them do their job? And not everybody answers to me, either formally or informally, like back channel answer to me. And letting things become more systemic. If you delegate too early, you're abdicating. But if you're at 20 million and you want to get to 50 and you're not delegating, you're never going to get there. You're just going to get stuck in a founder's trap.
John, I would consider you a tech founder that's built multiple tech education companies. And I don't know if you've been raising money while doing this, bootstrapping this. There's an inflection point between growth and profitability that you always have to tinker with. And this can be often a controversial topic for shareholders, board members, understanding when do I continue to go invest in growth? And then how do I continue to assure that I'm getting to a level of potential profitability at the same time too? How do you balance both?
So I just went through this with my current company where we were burning a lot of cash, growing quickly. The financial markets turned and the space we're in changed, actually in part by our hand. But all of a sudden growth slowed, customer satisfaction and market fit kind of disappeared, and we needed to move to profitability kind of all at once. And it was 2 really hard years to get through all of that. So this is a current problem, not just one that I dealt with before. A, watch your gross margins. Like, if those are consistently good, you can cut where you need to cut, right? In behind that, like growth takes care of a lot of problems. B, so thinking about what the systems are that really get your gross profit where you need it to be, your margins where you need it to be is critical. B, um, there's an exercise to do every so often of, if we had to be profitable today, if we had to cut $5 million, that's it. Like, there's a guy with a gun, do it, or you're out of here. Where would we cut? And you might not cut every one of them, but I'll bet you cut some. I bet there are employees who you're keeping around because one day you'll figure out what to do with that guy, but you have no idea otherwise. And there are, places you spend money that you really know are not money well spent. And especially if you've been successful before, you can believe your own shit and sort of willfully ignore those things. But it's really important to have someone on your team who is as serious about the cost side as a lot of entrepreneurs and I am about the revenue side.
Yeah, you mentioned something that I really like. When you have some level of potential friction, you're forced to take proper action. Someone puts a gun to your head saying, make a change. You will innately know how to go make that change. And you will get rid of that person if need be. And sometimes we sit in a place of comfort and we want to operate our business out of, where it's at today. And you need sometimes a gun to your head to understand where your business lies. And I don't think people get that enough. I think in the world of, venture capital today, when you have a board and you're raising multiple different rounds, you're put in positions where you as a CEO have to make massive decisions. What are some decisions that potentially, you had difficulties with your board on that you had to make that made you unpopular at the time, but knew it was beneficial for the company?
I think the hardest one with the board is around investment in product. Entrepreneurs can fall in love with their product, overinvest in it. And that iteration I was talking about, that once you've got a lot of customers, they will tell you how you need to evolve your product, right? Until you do, you're basically playing with yourself. Like you're thinking too much about it and not about other things. It's easy because it's fun and it's something you can control in a way you can't control sales. Sales require somebody else to do something. Like, you can mess with product yourself. So at various times, boards have pushed back on my R&D spend, and sometimes they're right, and sometimes I'm right, and it's a random walk. In general, I'm a big fan of VCs who have run companies, because there are VCs who come in and they're on your board, and what they truly believe is, if I put it on the spreadsheet, it's true. Like, you should be able to do this because my spreadsheet says you can do this. It's like, what do you do with that? Right? Like, but every so often they're right also, right? Like that you're just not looking at this thing aggressively enough. Maybe there's more pricing room than you've given it and you're underpricing. Or maybe you're overbuilding the product and you've lost sight of what people really need versus what you think they want. That adds a lot of cost.
Yeah, you remind me of something like myself. As I'm the CEO of my company, you're obviously CEO of your company, but you're probably masquerading yourself as the chief product officer deep inside because you care so much about what you're building. And sometimes you resonate so much with the product to make sure it's perfect, knowing that you want to deliver that first and foremost. And sometimes VCs and PE firms don't always see the same thing. They look at the spreadsheets, and that's where a dissonance can happen. Transferring into that.
Sometimes they're right, and sometimes you're right, right? Like that.
Correct. Now, going into, raising capital for your different ventures, you've done a few different ventures thus far. How do you know how to go choose the right capital partner? This is a topic of discussion that a lot of people listening to this want to go raise big bucks. And they want to make sure they're partnering with the right person, because if you partner with the wrong VC, with the wrong liquidation pref, you can get fucked pretty bad, as we all know, right? We've all heard these stories before. Tell me your thoughts on this.
So and stop me from rambling here because I could talk about it for the next 3 hours. Number one is when you go to market to raise money, you gotta cast a wide net. So you start, your first document is a spreadsheet with 40 good targets. And by good targets, I mean they invest in your sector. They're not invested with a direct competitor. They're early in their fund. So they have dry powder to spend on new things, not just on add-on rounds. And um, they're at the right stage, right? Like these are a good set of targets. Number two, obviously you've got your deck, your presentation deck, and your leave behind deck. Number three, you've got a good pro forma. And number four, you've got an FAQ, like you've thought through the questions they're going to ask. And you've got a process in mind. You come to the gate with those documents. It's going to take 3 months. This is how long I have. And you're going through it and you're not deviating. You're not like somebody, you have a great meeting. You don't stop other meetings and say, well, this is my preempt. There's no preempt. Like you're going to do your process. And I think VCs appreciate an entrepreneur with a process. At the point that you get to the end line, at the point that you've got several people who want to invest, which is a first world problem, and you're choosing, generally I found the guy who gives you the best valuation is the dumb VC. And now he's going to be on your board and he's going to be the dumb board member. And you certainly don't want to optimize for the worst valuation, but if somebody's an outlier on the good side, that's actually a red light. Number two, any kind of deviation from NVCA standard terms is a no. So when I'm doing a round, I will actually say to everybody, look, I'm not a valuation hawk. Don't worry about making me happy with some random number that I can feel good about and tell all my friends about. Give me straight 1x liquidation preference, vanilla terms. Whatever that valuation is, it's good. Because once you give somebody terms, every layer gets those terms on top of that. Like now you're stuck with them. So all kinds of preferences, liquidation, participating preferred, all kinds of weird stuff. You accept it once and you're going to own it. So no, take the worst valuation and take the simple terms. You know what? It's like casinos when they have special rules around
Blackjack.
Yeah. It's like it's never to your benefit.
Yeah. There's a catch-22 on that, right?
Right.
John, I have a phrase that says, I've been raising from private equity for a long time, institutional investors, and there's a couple of phrases that I always use is that, capital is a commodity and people are not. And then, my values always outweigh valuation. And those are the two things that I care about the most. I think I call myself a sales and psychology marketing guy, masquerading myself from private equity today. Yeah, a lot of these PE firms don't know that. What are your values when building your company that are non-negotiable to you?
We're going to make the world better. Like this product, if we are successful, makes the world a better place. Like this is like, there's a clear idea of how we are going to improve things. And we're going to make a place where people want to work, where we can attract great people and where they're going to have a good time. Less dogmatic, but actually how I tick. I tend to think about saving the maiden and killing the dragon. Like to motivate me, I need to be able to do something really positive and I need to be able to kill something that needs killing. And so everybody's motivated a little bit differently. I have people who are totally motivated by downside and by risk and they work hard because they're paranoid, and people totally motivated by upside. And I have a little bit of both. Other than that, like solve a problem. Like you're an entrepreneur. Like we see every day a million things that, boy, that could be better. Like that, like I have a plan. I could fix this. I could have the average commute time of a New Yorker. Like I could improve the subways. And every so often, like I'll draft a letter and send it to somebody at MTA and saying like, we really need to talk about this because like you're potentially able to transform the system. What are you doing? Um, Switching from that could be better to I know how to make it better to this is a business opportunity that I should pursue. Right? It's part emotion, part math. Like, is this a big enough problem? And am I the person who can solve it? Is this defensible? And all the questions you ask yourself. But God, there's every day you must have an idea of like, that could be interesting.
Yeah, I sometimes sit there and ponder on different ideas as well. And the first thing I always look at is, can I take this situation, this problem, and just cut it in half? So if I'm going to go help you mow your lawn, can I do that in half the speed than someone else doing it for you?
Or half the cost, or yeah.
Lost half the speed. And that's the sole place I start with when I'm trying to build any business. And the second way I look at things is how do I go create infinite demand first and then look at a business second, right? You always want to have that lead generation aspect of your business first, knowing that you can go and have infinite demand and people will always want your product. I think if you solve those two things, you'll find the unique moat of what you want to go build.
You talk about good ideas, but how many bad ideas do you hear every day?
Too many.
Like, it's unbelievable. And we're all stubborn as shit. And so it's really, really hard to tell me when I have a startup idea or for me to tell somebody else when they have one that this is a bad idea. And it's never successful. They're just, you can poke all the holes in it and they're still going to do it. And what I found is actually the one thing that works is saying to somebody, a startup is a decade. Like, this is not like what you're going to do for a week.
Yeah.
Is this the very best way to spend your decade? Like, of all of the ideas you have, this is the one that you're going to spend 10 years on. And that sometimes gets people thinking maybe a little bit that not every idea is hits the criteria you're talking about.
John, what if you are a startup founder today and you're a year into your idea and you've raised money, you have a team in place, things aren't working out though. And I come talk to you and you said, I'm going to spend the next 10 years doing this and I'm losing confidence. And I'm not sure that this is the next thing I want to go do for the next 9 years. But then you have so much at risk already. You already started this. You don't want to be known as the half-baked guy or the guy that, backed out of their position. What would you do?
I have a good friend who gave the investors back their money and just said, like, this is not as good an idea as I thought it was, and I'll come back to you with something else. And I totally respected that. People spend a lot of time and energy thinking about their idea before they launch. When they pivot, they spend far less analysis, right? At that point, they're no longer thinking outside in. What does the world want? What's infinite demand? They're thinking, well, I've got this thing. How else do I use it? And that's almost always a disaster. Like, there are high profile ones where it worked out, but really the pivots that have been successful, like Slack, it's not, oh my God, everything's going to shit. I have to do something else. It's, wow, that thing we're doing is wildly successful. Why are we doing anything else but that? Right? Like, it's just paying attention to what's working as opposed to panicking about what isn't working. So when I see something that's not working, if you don't just want to give the money back, you've got this theme. The hard conversation to have is to take it back, to say, let's take a retreat, bring some smart people to the room and say, clean sheet of paper. What can we do that's twice as good or half the cost or half the time, that's infinite demand? What's out there that's interesting? Some part of what we have might be relevant to it. Some part might not be. Like, are we positioned to do this or not? That's a hard question, but starting from there is certainly giving us a shot at success, whereas starting from, I've got this thing and let's see what we can do with it, is never going to work.
John, who are some of the smartest people you put in the room to get today?
There are a handful of people in ed tech who, it's not that they're so smart. We all know a lot of smart people. It's that they have a super high signal to noise ratio. Like they're both really smart and really low ego. And those people are so unbelievably valuable to an organization because there's no noise, there's no friction, there's just real conversations about important things. And because of that, they're incredibly insightful. They see the emperors naked. They see what the problems in the game are. They see what the opportunities are. Because they just have their egos just way down. So, I have worked with some incredibly terrific people, and some of them are high maintenance. Like not everybody is high signal to noise, and they're still useful and they're still great. But it's those guys who I seek out.
Johnny, you've obviously built some incredible teams. You've built multiple companies doing this. I like to always start with every company I go build or buy is I want to go build my Fab Five. I referred to the Michigan basketball team in 1990 and say, go build that perfect basketball team. And then you always want to have the Mount Rushmore of your team as well, which is the advisors that above you. Who's that best in class in ed tech that will be on your team that will support your CFO, VP of Ops, CEO, and so forth, right? Now, when going about and hiring people today, let's say me and you both had the same resumes, same experience. I went to Princeton, you went to Harvard, but we're both capable in doing this job. Besides what you see on a resume, what is one of the first things that you notice when interviewing someone to know they're going to be the right person for the next 10 years?
Assuming we're talking about pretty high level people in an organization that's starting to scale, the first thing I look for, again, has to do with ego. 1 out of every 10 interviews for a senior role, somebody comes in and filibusters. You ask them some question, like, I don't know, like, how's the weather? And 10 minutes later, they're still talking. And that's not going to work out. Like, in general, I have so far been O for HBS. In my life, I've probably hired 15 grads of HBS, and none of them have worked out. And they're obviously incredibly successful as a group, and they do all kinds of things because they don't work out in my companies. And I was trying to figure out why. And we all have our go-to management style. Mine, as I said, is highly iterative. Our team, the way that we tend to evolve ideas is somebody comes in and says, I think people kind of want that. Like, just like North looks like over there. And then we talk about it a little bit, and then he or she plays with it and comes out with a selling proposition, right? Like, this is what a website would look like for it. This is what a press release, to use Bezos thing. And then we bang on that, and we start talking to some customers about it, and we kind of play with it. And then, we start doing a financial analysis of what would we have to charge and what are our costs and so forth. And we iterate on that. And over time, we evolve an idea. Whereas there are people who come in and you got a problem, and they leave on Friday and they come back Monday looking like hell. And they spent the entire time, and they have this beautiful deck, these detailed pro formas for the next 10 years. Like, everything is designed to the last comma. And they get in the room and they're very proud of themselves and they're very tired. And people start poking holes in it. Well, have you thought about this? And what about this? And, like all the questions you would have asked when you were still at a 30,000 foot altitude. But now the thing is specced out to the 5 foot level. But you're still asking all these questions, and they give you this look like you're an idiot. You're all like tiny little minds and nitpicking my brilliant idea, and it's a disaster. And instead of a team kind of playing like Michigan, like just passing the ball and hitting the open man, like there's one guy and he's just looking for spectators. I'm looking for people who want to be part of a team, who want to come in with ideas, who want to bounce off other people's ideas and grow things that no one person's DNA is all of the DNA of that idea.
I like that a lot. There's a book called Ego is the Enemy that changed my life. I have a lot of people in my companies read that book as well because I think ego is the biggest cancer of any company. And I'll never forget, I played, soccer my entire life and played in college. And then, I had a coach one day tell me when I think my ego was a little bit inflated, he goes, Sam, the name on the front of the jersey is more important than the name on the back of the jersey. Just remember that. And
I
yeah,
love that.
yeah, he humbled me very much. And then from then on, I realized that I have to, strip that ego sometimes and know that it's not all about me. And you have to go sacrifice for others and be a servant leader. And not many people understand that today, especially when you get to the level of hierarchy where you're in the C-suite and the VP level. You're trying to boast yourself as much as possible to show, hey, John sees what I'm doing here. But sometimes the John, who's the CEO, doesn't want to be flexed on whatsoever. I think that's where the dichotomy starts to happen in these organizations.
I'm with you. The phrase I heard that I liked a lot was one of my kids' coaches early on. He was 7 or something. He said, he's going to be a really good player when he stops watching himself on television.
I like that. I like that a lot. John, I'm curious about this. You've been a CEO for a long time. What do you think makes a really good CEO today? I think a lot of people, ponder about this, and it's a big role to fill. You're playing in that middle role, reporting to the board as the first chain of command, and then you obviously have a lot of direct reports underneath you as well. Tell me how you define that.
You've said it. I mean, it's putting together the team and then having a role on that team. My role generally is product marketing, right? Like in sales. Like I'm out there hunting and figuring out this is going to work and this isn't going to work and this has product fit and this doesn't have product fit. The feeling of coming into customers with an idea and either getting you never get a yes right early on, but you get a maybe or no, but it's close, or you get you're just 100 miles away from the right answer. And that, those conversations are invaluable. And I'm, by virtue of kind of my work experience, I can get in and have more of those conversations than a lot of people. I think in different kinds of companies and different kinds of teams, I might be best served with a different role. But I've tended to craft where I can do that because I like doing it and I'm reasonably good at it. On the other hand, when something goes wrong, then that becomes job one, right? Like the first rule is don't run out of cash. So the fundraising and the running it as a business, no matter how good your people are, when we run into problems, like that has to trump everything.
And John, from your previous, last few companies, now you're going into Noodle. You've been running this company for a long time. What do you think you've learned from your last companies to now building Noodle, and just walk us through what you're building today at Noodle?
Princeton View I did, I bootstrapped all the way pretty much to the IPO. 2U, we raised $100 million in a pretty short time. And I left just before the IPO because I hated running a public company. Noodle is somewhere in the middle. We've now raised over 100 million and grown pretty well, but it wasn't like a rocket ship. 2U, I was walking into absolute blue ocean or greenfield. And here there were a lot of people in the space who we had to kill. And so this was more of a, combat kind of situation. I think the most important thing I walked out of my last companies with into this one is that how you structure things to reward good behavior has to survive you. Like if you set incentives wrong, the company will eventually lean into what's profitable, whether or not that's good for your customers or good for the world or good for anybody else. And in my last company, I created contracts and so forth with goodwill that that my successor kind of took in a different direction, in a direction I had a huge problem with. And watching the company I built end up being a force for bad things instead of good things, that wasn't working for kids or for schools. It made me absolutely insane. And I mean that literally.
I can only imagine. Yeah, seeing what you built, And seeing it change like that with other people probably in control and you have to watch it from the sidelines is no easy task. And now you obviously building Noodle and you've been in the education space for so long. A question I think a lot of the audience and even myself would be very curious about is that we're in the middle of one of the largest shifts in human learning and AI, right? I think online education, credential inflation is all changing rapidly in front of our eyes. Where do you think education will be in 20 years? And what scares you the most about the future of education?
In general, not just in education, technology. Technology has had almost no impact on education to date, like stunningly little. Like you walk out, especially K-12, you walk out of a classroom in 1955 and walk into one today, and you'd be right at home. And the tools are different, but the learning is not better. In general, there are two ways of thinking about education. One vector is about adaptivity, right? Especially with AI, but even before that, we can make your learning journey so much more specific to you, right? This is what you already know. This is what you want to learn. This is how you learn, right? So imagine that we can customize. On the other hand, learning is social. We learn with other people. And technologists in general have leaned into the first and not the second, and not just on education, but in life. Like social media has made people more isolated, not more loved.
What do you think about it?
I don't know why it is, just that it is that people are having less sex. People are spending less time with other people than they were 10, 20 years ago. And education is a fundamentally social thing, I think suffers from that even more than other things. So the dystopian future is that we continue to make education on the one side more personal and on the other side less social. And that's a disaster. And by less social, in the end, less compelling and less effective. On the utopian side, we all know that whatever you learn by the time you're 21 isn't going to get you through to retirement, right? And the idea of lifelong learning, the idea that we've got to give you a really good basis in critical reasoning, the world's going to change quickly, you've got to be able to pivot quickly, and the tools and the inclination to keep learning. Learning is not fun. We all want to know stuff. Knowing stuff is fun, but learning is, for a lot of us, is kind of a pain in the butt. Making it as fun as possible and making it something that you just do the way you brush your teeth in the morning. Not fun, but we do it.
John, there's something in the education system that I study a lot that really makes me curious in the sense that, we learn a lot, whether it's in certain things in history or certain things in math that don't translate to what we do today on a day-to-day basis. And I would wish that if I would put a magic wand out there, that there would be a entrepreneurship school for the youth, K through 12, that would help us understand how to acquire their first piece of real estate, file taxes, the fundamentals that we're doing today. While, physicians are going through medical school, residency, coming out, and they're having trouble hiring a biller and setting up an office and doing all the business side of things because their head has been in the books for so long. And I find that a constant theme of people who have a high level of academia, but don't know how to translate that into real world problems. How do you bifurcate that? And same token, how do you mesh those together to make sure the education system is complementing, what you're doing today in the real world?
Three things. One, the gap between college educated and non-college educated, the income gap has been growing for the past 50 years. If college is doing such a terrible job and K-12 is at preparing you for the workforce and preparing you to do things, why is that true? So I'm not sure I buy the premise that we're teaching all the wrong things. Number two, you don't need that many things after you learn once you're numerate and literate, whether you learned 17th century Russian literature or philosophy or anything else or engineering, it's just learning to learn. It's just and so it's not clear to me that if we replace the courses that aren't relevant to your life on a day-to-day basis with making sure every kid really knew how to do their taxes or how to have done their taxes 10 years ago when they went to school, that the world would be wildly more effective or happy or anything else. I think critical reasoning is about taking a problem set and working it, and then being able to take the skills you learned and handle it and apply them on a completely different problem set. So if that's true, if that's what we're trying to get at, it really doesn't matter what it is. And in fact, when people go with these like top-down curriculum, every kid should learn this, it's almost always a disaster. Let me rephrase. Up to today, it has always been a disaster. I'm sure it might work one day, but all of these top-down things fail because the content itself is the least important part. The process is everything. Somehow people manage to file their taxes.
They learn over time. They definitely learn over time. John, you're a wealth of knowledge, especially in the education space and building multiple companies above $100 million of revenue, IPOing businesses. And I know you're going to get to that $500 million mark. So I appreciate all the knowledge you've shared here with us today. As we wrap up, I do always a series of rapid fire questions that will catch you off guard, hopefully. And I just want you to answer top of mind. Here we go. Money is not an issue. What company are you buying today?
What company? Like, I can buy any company on earth?
Money is not an issue.
I want to buy Apple.
I like that. There you go. I think I heard it was like 27% net margins on that company still.
Well, it's also, I mean, they really understand product fit.
They do. Yeah. What's something you believe now that you would have thought is insane 5 years ago?
That people can and will fall in love with an AI.
Yeah, it's scary. What's the lie that's hardest for you to let go?
That the picture on my license looks anything like me. It was taken 40 years ago.
John, when do you feel you became yourself?
I'm not there yet.
Fair enough. And John, what do you think the point of all this is? We go and raise all this money. We're living on this earth for so long. We're stressing ourselves out. In the end, we all die and all our problems go away. What do you feel the point is?
I think we're here to make the world better. And have fun while doing it. I don't have to wear a hair shirt. But if you don't feel that your work life is improving the world, you can get another job. There are plenty of ways to make money that can.
Yeah, it's crazy how many ways there is to make money now. And it always starts to increase every single year as well. I think people just need to hone in on their skills more and more and then know how to go solve a big problem. And I love the problems that you've solved in education. You're obviously solving massive problems for the future. So I appreciate your time. This has been
I'm going to fix the New York subways at some point in my life.
There you go. You got to give me a call because I will not get on a New York subway until you fix it. I'll tell you that right now. That's the pod. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Sam.